everyone, it's Laura Laws, and today I'm going to be going over all the paperwork that is needed to make an offer in Pennsylvania. So they are the pre-approval, the consumer notice, the buyer financial information sheet, the seller's disclosure, and the agreement of sale. Let's go through the 5 of them. The pre-approval you should already have before you even looked at homes, unless you are doing a cash offer. If you are paying for the property with all cash, then obviously you don't need a pre-approval for a loan. After looking at your financials, a lender will give you typically a 1-page pre-approval, and it will give you the terms of the loan, like the loan amount, the purchase price amount, and the terms of the loan. The second document is the consumer notice. So the consumer notice you should have been presented with on the very first meeting with your agent. And it says on the very top, it's not a contract. Everyone in Pennsylvania should be getting one of these on the very first meeting. And it explains the role of the agent, so seller's agent, buyer's agent, dual agent. The consumer notice also goes through some of the duties of an agent. And for example, one of them is to deal honestly and in good faith. So it's just 2 pages, front and back, and the agent signs it, and then the buyer or the seller signs it. So the third document is going to be what we call the BFI, the Buyer Financial Information Sheet. The BFI, this is a standard form in Pennsylvania that is submitted with an offer. If it's a cash offer, you don't need this. You just need the proof of fund. If you're getting a loan, the BFI needs to be filled out. It's gonna make your offer stronger. And basically, you fill out the buyer information, you answer some questions. It asks you about your assets, liabilities, if you own any real estate, your employment information, your income information, and then you also sign this. The fourth piece of paperwork is called the seller's disclosure. So you will get this from the seller or the seller's agent, and it is a really important document. So it is 10 pages, and it is the law of Pennsylvania that every seller needs to fill this out and sign it. There are exceptions which are listed right here on the front page, and just some examples would be like anyone who doesn't live in the house, like a foreclosure, an estate sale, or a new construction. So the seller's disclosure is the seller's knowledge of the condition of the property. So it goes through everything about the property, and the seller will check yes, no, unknown, or not applicable. And a seller should really be very thorough and take time and go through this and answer everything. And really, as the seller, what the disclosure does is will protect you from future lawsuits. So for example, if you have water in your basement, as the seller and you know about it, you need to disclose that. And even if you fixed it, you want to say, yes, there was water in the basement and this is how I fixed it. And here's a copy of the receipt from whatever waterproofing company. And that, should protect you from any future lawsuit. The seller's disclosure will need to be signed and initialed by the buyer before signing off on the agreement of sale. Something else that the buyer's agent is required to send the buyer is a closing cost estimate. So that needs to be done before the buyer signs the agreement of sale. So after you have put together the other 4 documents, the last document is the big document. It's 13 pages. It's the standard agreement for the sale of real estate in Pennsylvania. So as the buyer, the agreement of sale is going to be the offer and the terms that you are going to be offering to the seller. So the first page of the agreement of sale is who the buyer is, who the seller is, the properties, the addresses, who the seller's agent is, who the buyer's agent is. The second page is going to be a lot of the terms, so it's going to be the offer price, the deposit amount, if you are asking for a seller assist, the settlement date, and then just going through, you have the mortgage contingency. So if you're getting a loan, the offer will be contingent on a loan and subsequently an appraisal. if the home is in a homeowners association or a condo association, that's going to be checked off in here and contingent on you reviewing all the documents from the association. So the inspection contingency is in here, so you're going to be marking through which inspections you would like to elect to do and for what period of time, like 7, 10, 14 days, depending if it's the busy season. And then information in here about if one of the parties defaults on the contract, something that's very important to check. Sellers limited to retaining sums paid by buyer, including deposit monies, as liquidated damages. And then the very last page is going to be any additional terms you want to put in, and then basically the signature page. So those are the 5 basic forms that you need to submit to the seller when you are making an offer on a property in Pennsylvania. So the consumer notice, the buyer financial information sheet, the seller's disclosure, which should be filled out already by the seller, and the agreement of sale. And then one other thing that you're going to need to do is a deposit check. Once the offer is accepted, it usually goes to the listing agent in their escrow account. So typically we ask for a signed copy of the check so we know you filled it out and it's ready to go. If a property is built before 1978, then a lead-based paint disclosure will need to be filled out by the seller and signed by both parties. All the paperwork can be sent to the buyer through DocuSign, and they can sign on their phone, their computer, or a tablet. One other additional thing that a buyer can do is that you can have your lender, which I always recommend a local lender, and have the lender call the seller or the seller's agent. And basically they explain to the sellers or the seller's agent that these buyers are indeed qualified to buy this home. So the sellers will take their home off the market while the buyer does the inspection, gets an appraisal done, and the loan is processed, which can take 4 to 8 weeks. Because the seller is taking their house off the market, the seller wants to be assured that the buyer is completely qualified. So there is more paperwork depending on the buyer situation that could need to be filled out. For instance, if to get the loan they need to sell their house to buy the seller's house, then the offer would be contingent on the sale of a home. So once all the paperwork is filled out and signed off by the buyer, then the buyer's agent will submit everything to the seller or the seller's agent and get confirmation that it is indeed received. Typically it is verbal negotiations going back and forth. So once negotiations are complete, and then we make revisions to all the paperwork if needed, and then as soon as everything is signed, sealed, and delivered to all parties, the buyers and the sellers, then you are officially under contract and the clock starts. So thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and if you want to see more real estate videos, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks a lot.